and welcome. Let's start with this bulletin with the latest coming in. Joe Biden is taking a lead in the state of Georgia. While the vote share of both Biden and Trump is at 49.4%, Biden is leading by just 917 votes. Remember, the state of Georgia has 16 electoral states. Now, Georgia is another state that Trump cannot afford to lose. Biden's mail-in ballot advantage has pulled him as the results came in from Fulton County around Atlanta. With 99% of the state vote count reported, Trump cannot find a route to 270 electoral votes without Georgia and Pennsylvania. So his chances of securing re-election will hinge on the developments in these two states coming in the next few hours. However, the state isn't sealed yet, and we may not get a call for a while because the competition is so close. Now, a long Republican stronghold, southern Georgia has recently become more of a battleground state due to its growing black electorate. Now, in Georgia, the election officials in Fulton County, home to Atlanta, and the largest trove of Democratic voters in the state, plan to keep counting roughly 36,000 remaining absentee ballots. As of last night, Georgia last voted for a Democratic president in 1992, with Bill Clinton taking 43.47% of the vote to George H.W. Bush's 42.88%. With Joe Biden chipping away at Trump's leads in states crucial to any chance of the president getting the 270 electoral votes, if Biden holds his lead and wins the state of Georgia, Trump's hopes of retaining the White House will be dashed, and Joe Biden will be declared president-elect. Now, joining us live on this broadcast is Arsen Ostrovsky, a political analyst and West Asia expert from Tel Aviv. Good evening, and thank you so much for being with us. Now, Georgia has 1% of votes left to count. This is a nail-biting, very close election. What are we expecting out of Georgia? What is the significance of this state?
The significance of Georgia is immense. For Trump, it's a must-hold case. As you said in the introduction, not since '92, when Bill Clinton won the state, has a Democrat won Georgia. So Trump's path without Georgia is very, very difficult, almost impossible. Not out of the question, but almost impossible. So his hopes would be severely hampered. At this stage, there's been something like 5 million votes cast, and you have a difference of 1,000. So it's really as minuscule as you can have. Trump was leading for quite some time, but in the last number of hours, Joe Biden has overtaken him. There is maybe several dozen thousand votes left. We do expect to know, I think, the results later this evening. If Biden does get it, that will put him on 270, assuming he keeps Arizona, where Trump is, by the way, gaining on him. But at the end of the day, we must remember that there are two calls here. There's what the media says and then the final decision. So the media might call it for Biden if he wins Georgia this evening or in the next couple of hours, but it will be a long process. There will be recounts, and it is almost inevitable that it will go all the way to the Supreme Court with Trump's litigation plans.
Right, we'll come back to that. Israel's intelligence minister recently said that he hopes that Trump's policies will remain. Is it fair to say then that Israel is hoping for a Trump re-election?
Look, I think it depends who you ask. For Israel, I think the bipartisanship nature of Israel's relationship with the United States is paramount. But at the same time, there's obviously no denying that under President Trump, he has been one of the greatest friends of the state of Israel in the White House, whether you look at it in terms of his actions on Iran, withdrawing from the Iran deal, which is obviously a major concern for Israel. If you look at his steps on recognizing Jerusalem, moving the embassy on Golan Heights, on funding for the Palestinians, support at the UN, and of course, most recently, with 3 peace agreements with United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Sudan. Prime Minister Netanyahu does have a good relationship with Joe Biden. But at the end of the day, I would think irrespective of who is at the White House, Israel would certainly hope that the strong policy on Iran and the Middle East would continue. That said, Biden and Democrats have indicated they would look to re-engage with Iran, which would pose some concern to Israel.
Right. Now, if Biden wins the election, do you expect the normalization of the process to go ahead at full steam? Is he likely to put pressure on Arab states to strike deals with Israel?
It's interesting. Well, I think it's something we'll have to wait and see. Biden has come out and given his, recognized and acknowledged the positive developments of the normalization agreements between Israel and the Arab states. However, that said, I do not believe that it will be a priority for him. If he does make it to the White House, I think his immediate priority would be to focus on the COVID response and re-energizing the economy. I don't believe that the normalization agreements would be a priority, and that's something that I think we'll need to see.
Right, Arsene. And where do you see the US-Iran conflict going from here? Now, if we look, Biden was vice president when the nuclear deal was signed. So will a Biden presidency mark the end of America's maximum pressure campaign?
I think it will. The Biden team has been fairly clear that they will look to re-engage on the Iran deal. That is something that was a signature legacy of the Obama administration, of which not only Biden was vice president, but many of his key advisors and security and foreign policy advisors had a role. And that's certainly a very, in terms of the approach in Iran between Trump, who has taken a maximum approach, and the likely Biden administration. So I would think that you would look, that you will find that Trump will look to re-engage on the JCPOA Iran deal, and will look to work closer with America's European allies in terms of trying to get Iran back to the negotiation table. But certainly there are indications that that the maximum pressure campaign will certainly withdraw somewhat as Biden will look to re-engage on Iran. I should add, by the way, it will be interesting to see how the other regional and Gulf allies will respond. And that was one of the reasons that brought UAE, Bahrain closer to Israel with the normalization agreement. So conversely, if America does move towards Iran, it may actually push other Gulf and Arab states closer to Israel. So that's something that we'll need to keep a closer eye on as well.
Right. Absolutely. Arsene, thank you very much for joining us for all the latest coming out of Tel Aviv on the US elections.